Yeah.
You're live. Hey, I'm live. We're live? Like, hello, live? Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Chat, our third 2-hour cannabis talk show of the week. Not that I'm counting or anything like that, but this one's always the most anticipated. We call it the Green Rush because we bring in David Rabinovitz with us, and David gets to talk about the business of cannabis. That's his favorite thing to talk about. He's a data analyst, and the cannabis industry fascinates him, and we'll be talking to friends of David a little bit later on this show. But right now we're going to bring in a friend of us all. His name is Chris Walsh. He's the CEO of MJ Biz Daily. Chris, coming from Colorado, how are you? And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Great, thanks for having me. Coming from my basement in Colorado, and my webcam's been kind of going in and out, so sometimes I have a little red glow, so just be prepared.
That's all right. A red glow is a healthy glow. That's what I keep telling people. But I got to tell you, Chris, a lot of people, you know, the thing about the cannabis industry is that there is socialization. There's always been socialization. It's actually been part, I believe, of the culture for thousands of years. But unfortunately, COVID has reared its ugly head, and you guys have had to cancel your in-person conference, but you're substituting it with quite a few other online opportunities to network and mingle and talk. So you tell me what's coming up and how disappointing was it for you guys to have to cancel?
Yeah, honestly, we've been preparing for this eventuality since March when we closed our office, not really knowing what was going to happen in the world. So we've been putting a lot of time into, if we can't do anything in person, how can we capture the spirit and the buzz, but more importantly, facilitate connections and education and all the things that people rely on in a real world event. And so we've tried to rethink a lot of what we're doing. So it was disappointing, but you know, we're not going to jeopardize the safety and health of our staff, of people in the industry. And we couldn't do it from Vegas regulations, but we couldn't do it safely and effectively regardless. So it is the world we're in today, but we've really tried to rethink what we can do. And we're not just going to take, oh, this is MJ BizCon, let's just put it online and have a exhibit hall that looks like you're there. I mean, we're just trying to focus on the value for people and really put a lot of time into figuring out how we can get people networking and get them that connections and get them to meet the new people and even recreate the spontaneity of, you know, running into someone in a hallway or in a session room, and that ends up becoming your business partner or an investor or whatever.
Yeah, and there's plenty of those stories out there too, which I think is great. I believe you had the CEO of Whole Foods as your big speaker. Is that still on?
It is, absolutely. John Mackey, we have actually been trying to get him for years, and he wanted to speak at our event, but his board in the past said no. Now this shows you how far cannabis CBD has come, that he's actually going to speak at a marijuana conference. So we're really excited. I think he's going to draw a lot of parallels in various ways to the cannabis industry overall.
And that's not all. You guys are working on something else. I think I saw something come across. You know, Tess Woods does a great job for you guys. And I saw something about right around election time, right? Because there's kind of a big election coming up in the next few weeks, right?
Just a little one. Yeah, no, in trying to rethink what we're doing, a lot of the feedback we got from people that attend or exhibit was, you know, we like it, but it's in 3 days, right? And so all this business activity and all these leads come in and all these connections in just 3 days, and then we have the rest of the year, you know, and we're the next event. So we actually are extending MJ BizCon to early November. So people that register by then, there's a series every week of 1 or 2 forums. And so we're gonna have special election analysis and content for MJ BizCon registrants at that time, and connections, and the networking really starts then. And from there, you know, each week we have, you know, something on Latin America, Europe, hemp, investing. So it's not just going to be confined to December 2nd to 4th, which is the technical days of the main event.
Wow, that sounds great. So, Chris, what on the sign up? What are the deadlines?
Well, we have a deadline coming up towards the end of this month for our early bird deadline, and that's, you know, we realize the challenges people go through, and that this is a different experience. So what normally costs, you know, $400, $500, $600 in person, we're actually offering right now for $49, and we're also offering a free element that's like a basic package where you get some of the content, including John Mackey's talk, and some limited networking. But the real value is in the next tier. But it's really, we try to recognize that, yes, everyone is trying to work through this. So it's a real good price point, a low price point that's in effect for the next.
Wow. So basically, you're talking about for the price of one to go out for a steak dinner in Vegas, you can actually attend the whole show.
Yeah.
That's great.
Chris, can you talk a little bit about the amount of vendors you're still expecting to be part of the virtual MJ BizCon, and perhaps give us an idea of just how big a hit you guys have had to take?
Yeah, and I won't gloss around it. We've had a tough year all around. I mean, we're a business intelligence and connections and networking company that happens to have a lot of our business in the events world. And so when that magically disappeared overnight with no certainty, I mean, we've had to adjust. And that's a big chunk of our revenue. So we've been navigating this, and we're probably hit one of the hardest in the cannabis industry. Thank goodness the supply chain is holding up relatively well in the cannabis industry, and other businesses aren't experiencing this type of pain. But this has been significant for us. So but as we transition to this virtual environment, we just made the transition 2 weeks ago. We're getting pretty good feedback from most of the exhibitors that wanted to go in person. And so we'll have, we're hoping, 700, 800, 900 exhibitors in this forum, but we're still in the process. And this is a brand new thing, right? So this is some uncharted waters for us too.
Is the list of the exhibitors available online so people can kind of see who's showing up and who's not?
Yeah, it's available on the MJ BizCon site, and you can scroll through and search. And what we're really trying to do is, shame on everyone who ran an event before COVID, including us, for not really focusing on how you can blend digital with an in-person event. So what we found in doing some of these before this now during COVID is you can actually make it more beneficial in some ways. You can never replace in person, and we realize that. So I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be better, but there are elements that are better. And so networking, MJ BizCon has become so big that it's a sea of people, and you don't know how to meet the right people anymore. So we've been trying to crack that nut for a while. But in a digital world, we can have matchmaking where you can search. It can be AI driven. It can connect you with people. You can have icebreakers, and you can try and find your connections. So on the exhibitor side, it's the same thing. You can easily search for the types of companies you're looking for, and you're going to be able to interact with them, live throughout the show.
So I do remember when Iron Mike Tyson made his appearance last year and attracted quite a crowd. I don't want to call it a mob, but it was certainly a lot of people, a lot of humanity surrounding his booth when he made his appearance. And, there's so many other sports athletes now that are getting into the CBD or the cannabis space or the ancillary businesses that surround that. Any ideas of if you're going to have any surprise people that pop into your virtual world?
There will be some surprises, which I will just leave it at that. But, one thing we've tried to do in the past is this industry had such a stigma. And when we started, there wasn't a ton of professionalism. And I'm not trying to paint the entire industry with that brush, but it looked a lot different in 2011 than it does today. And so from the very start, we said, we need to focus on business. We're not going to delve into consumer or patient. We're focused on the business, and we need to have the highest standards to move this industry along so that it's accepted by the mainstream and that people view it as real and legitimate. So I bring that up because along the way, we've shied away from having celebrities speak or like kind of marijuana celebrities or people that, have that stigma attached to them, which was seen as a stigma. But we realized that, so a lot of the other exhibitors, a lot of the other companies would have side parties and events or bring a Mike Tyson or a Gene Simmons onto the show floor. But we realized we don't want that. That is a fun aspect. And we want this to be a business show and not attract consumers. That's not our focus. So again, we've shied away from the celebrities, but we realize too that people like that, right, in the industry. So we have some plans to kind of hopefully recreate some of that.
Yeah, and even two of the biggest names from the '70s, Tommy Chong and Cheech Marin, seem to be emerging as their own little brand, and I believe they're involved in some dispensaries now. So while I understand that stigma is still there, but there's also a way I think to embrace it from a business perspective too. That even icons are now recognizing the opportunity and want to get involved, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Hey, as you know, we're right in the middle of a historic time in our history here in the United States. We're anticipating a major turnout for the presidential voting in the next couple of weeks. Some have already voted. I have already voted by mail. And there is definitely a division between the two parties when it comes to cannabis. If the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, does get elected, they are on record of saying that they will decriminalize cannabis as soon as they get into office or within a short period of time. How big an effect will that have on the business, Chris?
Now, I think there's different thoughts of this in the cannabis industry. So not everyone is going to agree with what I said, and I get it. Some say that doesn't go far enough and is really could harm us in some ways. But I really think that, we're not going to get everything we want in one fell swoop. And if we do, that's great. But that's not how these things usually work. And the history of marijuana legalization and legislation is step after step after step after step, and then the lid blows off. And so, if Biden and Harris win and, there's a blue wave coming up, it seems that for the cannabis industry, that could be a good thing. Decriminalization, may not change some fundamental issues the industry faces, but I think it's going to be enough to get us to the next big step, or to get us to some kind of fundamental change with banking or something that's key to the industry. And it might not be overnight, and I wouldn't expect all of a sudden by January or February, everything's going to change. But what it's going to do is likely open the door for more mainstream companies and investors to get involved, because it's not illegal at the federal level anymore, and encourage lawmakers to now start loosening up other laws that help the industry. So I do see that as a big, immense positive development. Could play out several ways, and it might take longer than we like, but it'd be better than the status quo, I believe.
Oh, way better. I mean, it's going to be like a huge infusion of a capital. Even without money coming in,
Yep.
If it's decriminalized, the biggest impact is going to be no more 280E. And when you start to run numbers, like we know I'm a numbers person.
You are a numbers guy.
The reduction of federal income tax is huge.
Right.
Right.
And that alone makes a huge difference. And Chris just mentioned opening up the banks. I mean, not being able to have a business and be able to go into a bank without paying exorbitant fees
Yep.
or whatever. And again, this is another reason why our money's at a credit union. Credit unions are more welcome to the marijuana-related business community than others. So I'm hoping, obviously, that that decriminalization will happen, and there'll be some significant changes. And Chris, I agree. I know that there are some people that don't think you go far enough, but are you afraid that if and when that does happen, that there might be factions that evolve in the cannabis industry that perhaps end up working against each other? Or is it at some point that we all have to just understand that we're in it together?
I think the industry has a history of having different factions and not necessarily coming together, as with state legalization, with how the federal lobbying organizations are spending their money and their focus. So I'm not expecting that to disappear at all. And you're also going to have potentially a deeper division between what I'll call the old guard, the people who've been in the industry for a long time, and maybe don't want it to change quickly, and the new gold rush people that may be some very savvy business people, which we've already seen coming in the last 2 or 3 years. That the whole industry can change, and it could change quickly in the dynamics of how it works and who's involved. And there will be absolutely friction. And so we got to be careful what we wish for. If you're a purist and a traditionalist and want this industry to stay different and to stay unique, and that is not going to happen unfortunately. I don't think. It may have elements that hopefully we can retain the spirit of certain things, but we all know how the business world works. And when the big guys come in, they're going to change things, as we've seen already.
There you go. Well, Chris Walsh, first of all, we're gonna hold you to this promise. You've moved the 2021 MJ BizCon to October, correct?
No.
Yeah, and we'll officially kind of detail that soon, but we have moved that up next year. Yep, to October.
Oh, really?
Well, see, you were out of the room. He explained that to me at the very beginning. But now that you're back, now you're getting
that
caught
now
up.
you can see what the look of surprise is and excitement. That's great.
So
we're not going to have it on Halloween weekend, right?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
You know, and just so everyone knows, the organizing a giant show like that, we are subject to the whims of the convention center, what space they have available. So we got pushed into December. We used to be right after the election. And then that's all that they could accommodate. So we were trying to get out of December because I don't think anyone likes December. So
yeah, October would be great. Imagine if it's on the amount of costumes we'd have at the show if it were right around Halloween, right?
Oh, that's just what you need is more fun at that show. Hey, Chris, we'll get together in October, God willing. Everybody will be healthy. We'll actually have fans at sporting events again. I mean, we have to move forward at this point because people, we've adapted. I think everybody has adapted, but it hasn't been easy. But I so appreciate you taking the time today to join us, and best of luck. We'll see you in the virtual world for sure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for both having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to see you, Chris. Thank you.
And we so appreciate working with the MJ Biz. I've met some of the nicest people in the last few years, and that convention just blew me away with the size of it, the magnitude, how people interacted with each other. There was an excitement in the room in that convention center, and I hope I get to go to more than just the one that I've been to, which was last year. And I think I saw you there. Didn't I see you there?
We saw each other there.
It was was it a blur? It was a bit of a blur.
It was there's a lot to do.
Yes.
It took a day and a half. My first time to one of those, it took a day and a half to walk the floor.
Right.
And then, like last year, Burns and Levinson had a wonderful event one evening.
Yes,
right?
they did. That's right. And I definitely was there for that. I remember that. And in fact, Burns and Levinson, we're going to give them a little shameless plug here. They're doing their State of the Cannabis Industry webinar, because they can't do it in a room like it has been the last couple of years, online at the end of this month.
Right, and I think it's going to be a great event. And I want a shout out to the folks at Burns and Levinson who are supporting the Massachusetts Social Equity Initiative. Yep. They have a pitch competition going on. They're assisting some of the social equity applicants with getting their decks in. They provided some comp tickets. They've been really great.
Yep.
And their event last year, I went to it. It was top shelf. People fly in from all over the country just to come to the little city of Boston to hear about cannabis.
That's right. And I think that one was in Waltham last year at one of the hotels at the Westin, I think it was. And I remember being there too. All right, so we're nearing the 4:20 mark, which is when we get to take our first break and kind of salute and explain to people, David, we can laugh about this, all right? But there is a great bond and within the cannabis industry. And the 420 code started in California. I get to tell a little bit about how it all started with a group of high school kids from San Rafael, California, who used to meet at the Louis Pasteur statue, which was across the street from the high school. And by the way, it's never been explained to me what the hell was a Louis Pasteur statue doing in San Rafael, California. Somebody might want to enlighten me on our chat line on that one, because that is definitely a trivia question that I don't know the answer to. I bet you don't either.
That's one I don't.
But
we're coming up on 420. It's bearing down on us.
But we do know it's time to take a break at 420. And here on the East Coast, we salute the San Rafael group and the 420 Waldos. However, the thing that was part of my growing up around that same time, 1971, was a song called Shanty, written by Jonathan Edwards, a singer-songwriter from New Hampshire. And he talked a little bit about what it meant to him. And sure enough, he performs this song at a radio station in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So sit back and listen to the words of Shanty. That's my version of 420. We'll be back with more of the Green Rush with David Rabinovitz and myself after a little music interlude.
Yeah, this is a tune that I wrote back in 19... I've forgotten. we had a saying in our old band, one of my first bands in 1966 or so. What are you going to do tonight? Oh, just, like every other night, just going to lay around the shanty and put a good buzz on. Gonna sit down in the kitchen, fix me something good to eat. Make my head a little high, make the whole day complete. Gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. Pass it to me, baby, pass it to me slow. We'll take time out to smile a little before you let her go. We're gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. You're on something. Go ahead. Rick Brodsky, everybody. Nothing to do and there's always room for more. Fill it, light it, shut up and close that door, baby. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Take it, okay. Prohibition never works, it's time to realize it. It grows in my backyard, it's time to legalize it. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. I'm going to sit down in my rented car. I'm going to jam it into drive. I'm going to head on out and play at WSCA with Sean. I'm glad I'm alive. We're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Every night and day, we're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on.
Nice. It's Friday. Thank God. Thank God Jonathan Edwards is joining us live in the WSCA studios.
There you go, WSCH Studios in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Jonathan Edwards live, and I keep throwing it out here. At some point, we're going to get Jonathan Edwards to come down and sing that shanty song live at 420. You can remember I said it on this October 16th, and see if I'm right or on whatever, What can I tell you? David Rabinovitz is here. This is the Green Rush Show. And we do this thing every Friday where we talk about the business of cannabis. David is a big numbers guy. He loves to analyze the numbers. He likes to look at the sales figures from the state of Massachusetts or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the numbers that he shares and talks about are all adult use recreational sales in the state of Massachusetts.
That's right.
And coming up in just a few minutes, a couple of FODs, friends of David. FODs. Well, if you're going to be the the star, Dave. If you're going to be the man, Blake Mensing and Aaron Goins, who've been all of a sudden regulars on the show, two guys that.
Well, there's a reason why they're regulars.
Why are they regulars, David? Let me ask.
Aaron is one of the sharpest minds around.
Yep.
And Blake has just been named once again Massachusetts Super Lawyer of the Year for Cannabis for 2020.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good for Blake. I like that guy. Good deal. All right. So do you want
Well, the other 8 guys you didn't like were the ones we couldn't bring on.
Who? No, stop it. He's kidding me now. All right. Now, do you want to do the numbers thing before they come on?
No,
or would
let's
you
bring
like
them on.
Well,
Let's bring them on.
They have to. They actually have to join first.
Oh.
So while we say that,
So then we'll
3 minutes away. That's why I have the clock there. I'm kind of trying to keep pace of the show.
Very good.
And now you have this. Now I can ask you a few questions before
No,
we
let's
get
jump
into
in
that.
and we'll do a very quick
Okay.
3-minute max overview of what's going on in Massachusetts.
Okay. He's
So
worked
Dan's
very
gonna
hard
pull
on
our
this
slides
PowerPoint.
up.
There we go. We got the
So
first slide.
Our first slide, here's where Massachusetts sales are. So if you're watching from any of the new markets, Illinois, Michigan, and you want to understand the trajectory, this is the way our sales have been growing over the last 2 years since the program started in late November. That little step that you see
that
is
flat line.
That flat line was the 8 weeks that our governor shut down the adult use program. But you can see our sales just keep rocketing upward.
Yeah, no. So it's interesting. But I heard all around the country during COVID, sales actually increased for cannabis. But even though in Massachusetts you could not get it on the adult use side, what happened during that time? Medical cards went up.
Way up.
Way up.
Way up, of course.
So again, there was access to the plant, certainly, and access to buy it, but it was not open to the public over 21.
Right.
Okay, so there you go. And there's your flat line, right?
Right. Now,
Okay.
let's see our next slide.
Our next slide. Oh,
Our
that's
next
great.
slide.
Oh, poor Dan's.
Dan's got it.
Dan's
Dan's
got it.
doing a great job.
It's not an easy thing.
So
But you-
here's how much we've grown. This is the first 8.5 months of 2019 versus 2020. You can see how much stronger the market is in Massachusetts this year, adult use sales, and that takes into account the fact that we had that 8-week flat period.
All right.
So it's almost like that top line should be shifted to the left to see how much stronger we are this year versus last year.
All right, now here's the question.
Yep.
What's the difference in the amount of dispensaries or 1 year over another? Because wouldn't that make the most sense? It's more available in more communities.
As more dispensaries come online, sales continue to grow. But we're going to talk about dispensaries in a moment.
Okay, cool.
So here's what I believe this is our, sure,
Okay.
weekly average sales, I believe, Dan?
Do you want me
Yep.
to read it? I can read that, I am
No, we're
progressive.
going to bring it, yep, that one there. I believe that shows you what the weekly average sales of the program are. Now that, again, the dip is when the program was shut down, but you can see just how quickly afterwards it recovered.
And then surpassed
True.
where it was.
Right? So now every one of these charts that we've seen so far is starting from the left and climbing upward because it's a good thing.
That's a
Sales-
hockey stick. Or no, what they call that,
It's,
the hockey stick
I
and
wouldn't
projection?
quite say the hockey stick. The first
Okay.
one might have been like the hockey stick.
Yeah.
But you can see how fast it's grown. But now we're going to look at the next slide. This is really fascinating to me.
God, I love the fact that he's so fascinated by these numbers. It's a good story.
It is a good story, but
Yeah.
here's what the average daily sales per store look like. Look at the way it's going down, right? I watch,
Oh, now that's interesting.
right?
Wait, I'm going to go back. Average daily sales per store. Got it.
So it doesn't mean that this is the revenue level for every store, but when you add up the number of stores
Yep.
and you count how many days a store is open and you add up the sales for that period, let's say that week, and divide one into the other, you can see the way that chart is starting to head downhill.
There you go. And it does look like.
And we're bringing Blake in. So Blake, good to see you. We're going to pull you right. We're going to pull you into the conversation in a minute. Dan, can we get that chart back up?
Oh, ding dong. There's Aaron.
Great.
See,
Right
friends
on
of Dave.
cue.
Friends of Dave. FODs. They're always on
FODs.
time.
Yeah.
FODs.
Great. So
All right.
these are average daily sales per store. And if we look at the next slide is very similar. It has to do with showing what the Now this next one, anybody who's looking to get into retail should look at this next slide. This is the average run rate per store, and here's what it means. Back in November of 2018, when the industry opened, the first 2 stores opened in Massachusetts right before Thanksgiving of 2018. We had a huge rush. We had people come up from as far away as Georgia for the experience. You can see that these stores were running at an annualized rate of above $80 million a year.
Whoa.
Quickly came down by January, and then as more stores open, the average annual rate per store keeps dropping. Now this is interesting, like if you're thinking about getting into the market, you need to understand the first mover advantage. The people who open up sooner will make a lot of money, but as more stores open, you need to have a business model that can sustain even on a lower sales level. So when I look at stores that are being built out with gorgeous interiors that look like spas and very expensive, I scratch my head and I wonder aloud, are they going to be able to sustain themselves when these revenues go down to $3 to $4 million per year per store?
Yeah.
Right?
You would think they would if they're smart operators.
Right.
And I also want to ask, you done?
No, we have 2 more, but go ahead and ask.
No, so Vermont. Oh, wait. Yeah, well, then you got to get to the Stephen Wright thing, which I loved. Vermont just opened up.
Right.
There was a study by a Vicente Cederberg research guy. I'm pretty sure his name's Andrew Hemingway. I might be wrong. Blake probably knows him.
Yep.
Predicting 2025, $250 million in sales in Vermont, a state that is 600,000 residents,
Right.
but gets 13 million visitors a year because of the skis and the touristing and all
So
that.
that's on par with Massachusetts, right? We've got 6 million. So take 250 times 10, you're at $2.5 billion. My belief is that we'll eventually be about a $2 billion market. Slice some of that off for the number of people coming up for recreation, for skiing.
Right.
Right. We don't have as many skiers coming up, especially not from New York.
No, we have hills.
So-
we don't have mountains.
Right.
It's a big difference between
Absolutely.
Vermont and Massachusetts.
So I think that's probably right in line with where it should be.
Right.
Plus, they're going to go through a lot more pot than we will because they got Ben and Jerry's. And as soon as it becomes federally legal, they're going to start to infuse that ice cream.
Unbelievable how this is all going to happen in the next. I pinch myself. I can't
Yep.
believe I'm in the middle of a historic rollout of cannabis legality in my lifetime. Now, I love this quote, and I love Stephen Wright.
So let's pull Stephen Wright
You
up.
could pull Stephen Wright up.
So now, back in the very early 80s, late 70s, I used to see Stephen Wright live in Brighton, Alston, at a place called Play It Again Sam's. He would just show up, they'd let him go on stage, he was just becoming famous, and he'd try out some of his material. And I still remember some of the lines, but one of my favorite lines that I think of is, why do we drive on a parkway and park in a driveway?
What does that have to do with your weed numbers is what I
Now we're going to go to the next
There
slide,
we
and you'll
go.
understand exactly why.
All right, why?
Right?
Then I'll tell
So
you
the-
my Stephen Wright story.
So the Cannabis Control Commission in Massachusetts publishes a list of what's going on with licensing that I convert into a table.
Okay.
Up until very recently, they called it the weekly list, which confused me because the list is only published every 4 to 6 weeks. So how do you have a weekly list that only comes out
4 to
once
6
a month?
Right.
Now they call it the list. But this is a great list. And when we pull our guests in, this will be interesting to talk about because I got Aaron's going to give us some cool insights on this. It just shows how many people are getting into the market, how many teams, and where they're progressing. Year ago, there was a huge backlog of applications. The Cannabis Control Commission clears somewhere around 50 applications a meeting now. So it's predicted, and I believe it, by the end of the year, they're going to get through all of the submitted applications that are ready to be approved. And now it's a matter of how quickly some of these provisionals are going to advance forward. And Aaron's going to have some interesting insight on that
All
when
right,
we
so
pull them in.
without any further ado, FODs, we'll get them dialed up here in a minute, but I want to tell my quick Stephen Wright story. The best thing about Stephen Wright is every story has to be quick because he has he's an easy, his mannerisms were so predictable. It was just one thing after another. He spoke at the Rex Trailer funeral. Now, Stephen went to Emerson and had Rex Trailer for on-camera performance.
Really?
And the first time he walked up to Rex Trailer, he says, "Wow, you're not in black and white," because he couldn't believe he was in color.
Right.
Because he'd always only seen him in black and white
Right,
TV. And yes, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call remembers black and white TV.
Well, I don't know about that, but yep. It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it.
All right. So we welcome in Blake Mensing.
Blake, congratulations.
Yeah. You understand you're an award winner.
Yeah, I was just named Super Lawyer's Rising Star in Cannabis Law in Massachusetts for the second year running, which it feels good to be recognized. And I believe I'm the only such attorney that exclusively practices cannabis law in this state. So yeah, I don't know who nominated me, but it's nice to be recognized. I don't know if it's worth the paper it's printed on, but I'll accept it.
and back to back as always. It's tough to repeat, Blake, and you did it,
I did.
and where are we looking behind you? This is obviously a virtual background, but I'd like to know.
Yeah, this one I think is a fjord somewhere. I do not know, but.
Okay, a fjord, like in Norway, they have fjords, right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, David, take it away.
And we have Aaron as well, right? Can we
Yeah,
pull both of
there.
them on the screen or just one?
We should be able to. There we go. Now everybody's one big happy family.
There we are. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, how you doing?
So here's probably the smartest guy in cannabis in Massachusetts.
Blake Mensing.
No, Blake.
Oh, sorry.
Blake's the best attorney, but Aaron has got to be the smartest guy.
Okay, there you go.
Follow
How's that
up
make?
with Blake, man. Blake is two-time Emmy Award winner. I mean, come on, man. This guy's just killing it. Like, why am I even on this podcast with him? I'm just, I don't know.
We're trying to raise up Aaron.
That's right, because you're an FOD. You're a friend of Dave. That's the key. FOD.
Hard to beat Dave, man. Hard to beat Blake, I should say.
Yep. Well, now you know how esteemed I hold the level of esteem I hold you in that you're in that kind of company.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate
So,
that.
Aaron, share with us you and I had a discussion probably a week or two ago that you had gotten on the phone and started to call people with provisional licenses, and we're finding out how many of them are starting to run out of capital.
Well, not even just starting to run out of capital, but many don't even have capital in place to even build out.
Yep.
I just decided to do a little quick exercise because I was trying to figure out the supply side of the state, seeing how the supply side is so constrained. And, when you add up all the licenses that are in provisional and final, you're probably looking at 7 to 7.5 million square feet of canopy that could be coming online in the next year or two. And so I said to myself, what is that number really? So I'm like, all right, let me just call up a few micros I know. And, granted, micro is only capped at 5,000 square feet canopy, but we can extrapolate from there. And so I believe currently there's 16 micros that are in the queue. 2, I believe, are in operation, have commenced operation. Maybe one of those is in final. So it's anywhere from 16 or 18 in the queue right now.
18.
Yeah, 18. That's what it was. Okay, yeah. Yep. So I spoke to 4 that I'm close with, and asked them how things are going. And each case, they asked if I could help them raise money. And all four of these micros have provisionals. And not only do they have provisionals, they've been sitting on their provisionals since spring and early summer. So then I said to myself, wow, all right, so these guys are sitting on provisionals. They would love to be making money, but some of them have to raise 1.45 million. The highest one has to raise 2.5 million. And this is 5,000 square foot canopy. So then I said to myself, okay, I wonder how many other tier 1s or tier 2s are in a similar situation. I would imagine if you're doing a tier 3, tier 4, or tier 5 and above, you should have your funding in place, or at least have some ideas of where it's going to be coming from, because it's a heck of a capital expenditure relative to a micro. So you have that one component. So I said to myself, okay, what is possibly most similar to micro? Most likely probably be your tier 1, tier 2, and maybe tier 3. So within that range, I have to ask myself, if I called 4 out of 16 licenses, all 4 that I spoke to, I didn't speak to the other 12, but all 4, 25%, are still sitting on their provisional. So then I say to myself, can I apply that same metric to tier 1s, tier 2s, and tier 3s? And I guess the point of the exercise is to really understand the supply side of the state. And if we are forecasting that in the next year or two, you're going to have about 7 to 7.5 million square feet of canopy hitting the market, well, that's actually probably not a real number. Most likely you're lower than 7 million. You might be anywhere between that 5.5 to as high as 7 million range. Unfortunately, it's a large range. I can't really specify any tighter than that. But we have to take these things into consideration when we're trying to think through the supply side. And me and Dave had this conversation, and I think the state is going to be witnessing a spike in wholesale prices this year. And we're going to establish a new and higher base. And my methodology for that is that, listen, you have 7.5 million square feet coming online next year or two. Obviously, cultivation is a different beast. You have to build it out. That takes months. Then you have to actually have your harvest. That could be another 3 or 4 months drying and curing. Okay, so at least a year. All right, so you have that lag. Now, on the demand side, we already know that the CCC is just turning out brick and mortar retail licenses like crazy. Okay, so that's demand side right there. Then we also have the LDL license. If they actually contract with SEs, that will be more demand. Then you're going to have the wholesale delivery license, which I would like to say is absolute wholesale demand. All of these instances are going to be happening most likely in the first half of next year. And when you have such a tight supply, there's only but one place for prices to go, and that is up. And so I can conceivably see a space where we are above $5,000 a pound in this state in 2021. And it's not that hard to get there from here.
Hey, Aaron, let me ask you just a real quick question before we throw this over to Blake. Just for our audience, what is an LDL and what is a wholesale delivery license?
Okay, so an LDL is essentially a courier license. So you can conduct home delivery. However, you have to contract or have an agreement with an existing brick and mortar dispensary, of which that brick and mortar will take in all the orders and then essentially call up the delivery company that they're contracted with them and tell them to come pick them up and drop them off. So essentially like a courier service, like a Uber Eats, something to that effect.
Grubhub or Uber Eats for weed.
Exactly. It's going to be a very low margin game, very hard to make a very fair living. So we fought for a wholesale delivery license. We wanted to have the ability, and when I say me, I'm talking about social equity participants in economic empowerment, since it's exclusive to those two classes of people for 3 years. And so we pushed for a wholesale delivery license. And all that's going to do is allow a home delivery operator that goes for a WDL license to purchase directly from the cultivator and then mark it up appropriately to a retail price and deliver the product and keep the spread. Now you have real margins, pretty much similar margins that a retailer might have, and you can actually go in business, be able to make business decisions, have a lot more flexibility, and determine your actual destiny, as opposed to being tied to a brick and mortar, and unfortunately your destiny is tied to them, essentially. So that's really, in a brief synopsis, what the two are.
Great. Now, say, Blake, let's bring you in on the discussion. So maybe add some more color onto this and tell us a little bit about Coyote Cannabis and what Aaron has said, how that's going to impact what your plans are.
Sure. Yeah, I agree that we're likely looking for a spike in pricing. The delivery license category, both sort of flavors of it lead to more buyers. And there is right now, because of the pandemic, I think a restriction and constriction of the dollars flowing into cannabis, as is the case for any industry. So of course you back up, to a 10,000 foot overview, you can't go to, your local bank and say, hi, I'd like a business loan, please. They're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, in normal times. There was some limited lending that I was aware of in this state, but it's not, enough to get you open. And now that's gone. So, you have a lot of people, who've gotten to what they think is close to the finish line with provisionals in hand. The way I've been operating has been that itself would be, fundraising gold. you would say to a potential investor, look, we're beyond the mere hypothetical. We've done this, and not everyone can say that. So, I've been involved in, license acquisitions and sales, and just the paper, is going for quite a bit, between $500,000 all the way up to nearly 5 million is what I've seen, across my desk for just those papers, no build out or anything. So, ultimately it takes dollars to get the infrastructure built. It takes time because you need to get the commission's permission, to swing a hammer and put up a wall. There's also been, changes to a couple different contours on the cultivation side, namely the energy compliance plan, which frankly, their guidance document says anyone who's submitted an application on or after July 1st, 2020 must supply this energy compliance plan. So of course, thinking that words should have fixed meanings, I read those words and that date and I said, oh great, I applied in December of 2019. I don't need to do it. I submitted my architectural control form and the commission said, where's your energy compliance plan? So I quoted the guidance and they said, oh yeah, we didn't really mean that. So there's just all this stuff where you have to guess based on words and a date. That to me should be a good measuring stick, but evidently I have to read their minds as well as their regulations. So yeah, long story short, there's going to be, a new crop of, forgive the pun, of people, entering the delivery market. I would guess most people are going to go for the wholesale model. Because the courier model, I think, is, so you're sort of kneecapping yourself from the outset by being handcuffed and at the mercy of whatever the retailers want to, peel off for you.
Peel off for you is a very good way to phrase it. My limited experience in speaking with retailers they're very, very excited about signing up social equity applicants to partner with them, as long as part of the sign up, they get a piece of the company. So they're
for nothing,
Aaron understands this better.
Yeah.
He's the leading guy with the advocacy with the Cannabis Control Commission, but the existing retailers are not happy about what's going on with the full service home delivery license class. Understandable, but they're also bearing down really hard on the limited delivery licensees on the deals they're making. They want equity, they want exclusivity, and those people won't make a lot of money. And then you have the platforms that are out there that are looking at the limited delivery folks as just a commodity. And the social equity side of this dictates that the social equity players have a real opportunity to make some money in this industry. So.
Yeah, and they're not giving anything for, okay, so this is where my emotion starts to get really into this, because a lot of SEs reached out to myself and my wife, Janelle, and we're very aware of a number of the term sheets that are going around and a lot of negotiations. I won't say the word collusion because that's very tough, but it's the consistency between each and every one of these offers that are being made are strikingly consistent, where that they will say, okay, we're not going to give you any capital. However, we want 9.9% and we'll help you with your ACA.
Right.
And I say to myself, wait, what's the monetary value and quote unquote, what is help with the ACA mean? Because as far as I'm concerned, that 9.9% is worth vastly more than me going out and hiring Blake to help me through the ACA process. And so,
whoa. Use somebody else's name. Blake is a super lawyer in Massachusetts.
No,
I got to stand up for my friend.
He's a neighbor. He's a kick butt lawyer. Actually, he's actually our lawyer. So, all just full disclosure, that's how much we think of him. But what I'm trying to say is, from a comparative basis, that 9.9% that you're giving up is nowhere worth. I mean, to hire a lawyer, it's not comparable. So that to me is predatory. And I saw one term sheet that almost made me gag, where they actually were going to give a monetary amount, $100,000, 9.9%, but they wanted 2 board seats.
Wow, I bet I could guess which dispensary that was. I think we may have spoken to them too.
And the SE's like, should I take this deal? And I said, no. I said, 9.9% and 2 board seats, they're 1 vote away from basically controlling the direction of your company. A board is run by consensus. So all they have to do is convince one other. That's the reason why they want, it wasn't 2 board seats. the terminology was they have to always maintain half of the board seats. To me, they want to always be in position to be able to garner control and steer the direction of this company in the way that they want.
So, just on that last point, those two constructs are calculated. 9.9 is to not offend the commission's ownership control limitations, and half the board seats is just slightly under what is also a hallmark of control. So that was done basically on the advice of a regulatory attorney, where they said, this is how you slide under the commission's radar. And when they have numerical, tests, that's how you can beat it. So there's a lot of entities out there saying, yeah, 9.99% equity, and we'll do X, Y, and Z. And, Aaron, you hit the nail on the head. An HCA is not worth 9.99% of anything. No. It just takes some persistence. And sometimes you'll get no's and sometimes you'll get yeses. For instance, yesterday, I emailed Holyoke for an HCA. I got it this morning. So it's not, you just ask, and it depends on the town or municipality you're in. But yeah, please, any SEs or EEs looking, listening, do not give away 9.9% of your company on the promise of an HCA and no dollars. That's crazy.
It really is.
That's been one of my mantras in the social equity program. First off, if you can't get a host community agreement on your own, you need to rethink whether you should be in the business. Second, you shouldn't be giving away that much of your business for somebody who's basically going to take your hand, walk you into the municipal office, make an introduction, and put in a good word for you.
Yeah, that's all it comes down to. No. So that social equity is dealing with in this environment, sad to say.
Yep.
I want to ask the super lawyer.
Ask the super lawyer. Hey, Blake.
I want to ask the super lawyer
So, Blake,
question.
you represent Aaron?
I do.
I thought I was your only client.
I have never said any such thing to you.
Your fees must be high. Man.
Oh, gosh.
Just one
So
client.
this is probably a question that actually I asked David, and he gave me a great response. So now, Blake, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Oh, this is great.
Okay?
This is good.
Well, I mean, it's
a good question.
It's a good, thanks. I
think,
appreciate
and I
that.
think
Once in a while I get to say it.
And it's important. I think this is really important for the audience to pay attention to, because this is where you start slicing the garlic really thin. You need to understand what it means.
Right, and we just talked to Chris Walsh, the CEO of MJ BizCon, about the future. Moving forward, if the side of the political ticket wins, that is promising decriminalization at the federal level in the first quarter of 2021 or whenever they can get to it or whatever, what is the difference between full legalization and decriminalization, and why is that causing such a, well, actually, that's not the question for you. You answer that question, the legalization and decriminalization, then we'll get into the fact that the cannabis industry has factions in it that is not happy with the decriminalization opportunity. So first of all, can you just explain those two differences?
Sure. So 10,000 foot overview, federal law on a given topic. It's what's known as preemption. So it preempts either the field or a particular topic from contrary state regulation. So in the federal cannabis context, the statute is the Controlled Substances Act. So it's very crystal clear, black and white. Every state legal cannabis operator is 100% federally illegal. Medical, adult use, it doesn't matter. The federal law does not draw a distinction. It's just 100% illegal. Now, what we all know is, of course, this industry exists, and there aren't federal raids happening left, right, and center. So full legalization would mean the repeal of the Controlled Substances Act's coverage of cannabis or the reclassification. The CSA breaks things down based on schedules. So in the eyes of the federal government and federal law, cannabis is a Schedule I substance. So they claim that means it's more dangerous to human beings than heroin. That's objectively ludicrous. That's scientifically incorrect. And it's a lie. So federal legalization would mean some movement off of Schedule I. There's full legalization would be, it's no longer included at all in the CSA, Controlled Substances Act, or it's rescheduled to a lesser, schedule than one, where there are different standards in terms of what you can and can't do with it. Schedule I means, that's verboten. You can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Right. It's bad. You're naughty. Decriminalization would mean something less than that. It would mean we're not going to basically come after you for low-level possession issues. What decriminalization would not do, and I actually see a silver lining in this, is it wouldn't open up necessarily interstate commerce. So these big multi-state operators couldn't say, haha, we now have our tentacles in all these states and we can consolidate it under one single entity instead of having outposts in each legal state. The reason I think there's a silver lining there, it's for people like me. I don't have $100 million. I don't want to raise $100 million. I want to make products that are basically better than what money can do in terms of production. It's about labor. It's about the love. It's not about getting it to the lowest possible unit price. With federal prohibition in some form, I see more of an opportunity for me to get market share to establish a brand than if it's a free-for-all nationwide. Because then you have the companies, it's going to be Anheuser-Busch, Monsanto, Bayer. They're going to come down and plop, $200 million and say, we run this now. And, as a consumer, they're going to produce crappy stuff, but the people still drink Bud Light. And I think it's objectively terrible. So, it's different markets. I'm trying to pick a fight I can win. Quality over quantity, because I don't have the quantity of dollars to compete on quantity.
Well, the bottom line on that, though, hang on a second. And, there's the, what do they call it, de facto and all this in law. The point is, if you decriminalize it, you're not going to get arrested for having a couple of joints on you, which we know has led to way too many possession arrests in this country. I think I saw the FBI report, 563,000 possession arrests last year for cannabis possession. Those would go away, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is still a good thing, right? I mean, it's a step in the right direction. It's not as far as people want it to go, but the Rome wasn't built in a day.
True, but think about it like a parking ticket, right? It's you park in front of a fire hydrant, it's against the law.
Right.
But it's not criminally against the law, it's a civil infraction.
Right.
And that's the difference here.
Right.
They don't put you in handcuffs for a civil infraction, they write you a ticket. So if you get caught, Blake, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you get caught smoking marijuana in a public space in Massachusetts, it's susceptible to a $100 fine.
Right.
Not handcuffs, not arrest.
Right.
$100 fine. Don't pay your ticket. That's a different story.
Right.
But
hire the super lawyer.
I don't think Blake does that kind of. When you don't pay your ticket, it becomes criminal. I don't think that's what he's doing.
I know that. Hey guys, as usual, the conversation always goes to a higher level when the three of you are together, and I had to bring it back down to earth a little bit and ask that question because we're moving in that direction. It's becoming more and more. Well, I don't want to say those words, but it does seem like there might be a change. Let's just say. In the election.
Yeah,
like you're dying to say something.
In terms of the election, I don't want to get too. It's too stressful to think about. But I think from a federal perspective, we are at a point about when we legalize cannabis federally, not if. Right. You look at the public polling. Even a majority of Republicans are in favor of some form of cannabis being allowed, whether that's decriminalization, rescheduling, or full legalization, is to be determined. But, the genie's out of the bottle. You've got too many jobs, too many tax dollars in play here for this to go away. And then, frankly, just looking at the basis of prohibition, it was based on lies. Schedule 1, part of it says you have to have no recognized medical benefit and a high potential for abuse. The federal government has a patent on cannabinoids for neuroprotective properties. So those things can't be true at the same time. And that, governmental hypocrisy has been exposed, and it's the end is near. I can't predict exactly when, but the end of prohibition is going to happen.
Near.
All right.
Famous words from Blazing Saddles.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you both for joining us. As always, you're welcome anytime, and appreciate your insight and your passion, Aaron. You have great passion for this, and that never is lost on me. So thank you guys, both of you, for coming in. We're going to move on because we have another guest coming in, but we are going to take a little break, and I have to set it up. Okay, this is important to me because I worked a lot on this. Okay. I put together a proof of performance it's not a sizzle reel, it's a demo kind of proof of performance video of what we've accomplished over the last year here at Pro Cannabis Media.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Thank you. And I posted it on Facebook. And guess what?
Somebody liked it.
No, they took it down. And we're going to talk about that after you see this. So let's take a break, and we'll be back in a minute. No, we won't? Keep talking? Keep talking? That's not difficult for me. I thought I was going to set that up. I'm going to keep talking. They took it down because it violated, they had 3 things that it violated. And again, we try not to talk about, we don't do stoner content, okay? We talk about this as a news item. We try to educate people about this subject. We talk about it from a business perspective, from a cannabinoid medicine perspective, and an educational perspective. And Facebook still took us down. Let's take a look. Thought I'd throw that in there. I'll show it to you. I mean, it's just excerpts from the show and then clips and a lot of, look, see, you got first, see that? You see that? You flash through. I don't know if you come back. I don't think you come back. Well, hello there. Here we are again, another live stream from the new studio of Pro Cannabis Media. This is Cannabis Chat, and I'm Jimmy Young. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Weed Talk News. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Kurt Dalton, the founder of Cannabis.net.
Every week, Kurt and I get together to review some of the biggest stories in the cannabis industry. He and I talk about them. We have a few comments, and then we get reports from Canada, New York, and Washington, D.C.
And this week's no different, Jimmy. We finally have Vermont moving toward recreational cannabis with retail opening in their state. We have an old state and a new state, Colorado and Illinois, both setting cannabis sales records in July, as well as multiple efforts to legalize the cannabis plant in America, including our friend Steve D'Angelo getting involved.
But first, let's go to Deborah Borchardt in New York to check on the financial weed scene. Deborah?
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Jimmy. Well, things seem to keep going the wrong way for Charlotte's Web.
Whoa, Jimmy Young, in the weeds on the water this week. We've got the CEO of Kushko, Nick Kovacevic, with me. This guy has built his little company in 6 years from $2 million in sales to $145 million in sales.
We can get this thing to be fully legal here in the next few years, I believe, but it's going to take far longer for the stigma to change.
I think you guys are the pro cannabis story.
And I love Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, I'm Jody Roberts with Eastern Security State, and I love Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, I'm Laura Beener. I'm the president co-founder of The Healing Rose, and I love Pro Cannabis Media. It's been such an integral part of our success here at The Healing Rose.
And you know what? The best media company out there is Pro Cannabis Media. Look out for them. They'll make you famous.
Hi, I'm George, and I love Pro Cannabis Media. I also love Western Mass Hydroponics, where we've got everything you need from seed to bloom to bud, and then to smoke it afterwards.
All right, welcome back to Cannabis Chat, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young. I'm joined by David Rabinovitz here on The Green Rush. That's what we call our Friday afternoon talk show, where we get to talk about the business of cannabis. And I wonder if that little soundbite at the very end where George from Western Hydroponics said, and then you get to smoke it afterwards, was the reason why Facebook took it down, because they see that as promoting.
That may be it. You know,
promoting drug culture.
Fortunately, it was at the end. Maybe you cut that little clip out.
Well, we could. I mean, I could try it, but I get so. Yeah, that's right. Well, we definitely right. That's right, Dan. We understand the obligation that these social media companies have to have now with censorship, David. That's really what it is. Now, there are certain things that I'm happy that they censor. Okay. Now, needless to say, this was personal. Okay. I'm interested in when we get to Jared Mursky, right, who's a branding guy.
Great branding guy.
Okay, great branding guy, super branding guy. I'm interested to hear, what he has to say about YouTube in April of 2018, taking down every cannabis-related video, even the ones that were basically just educational, had nothing to do with stoner content, showing people actually using the product. And Max Simon, who I interviewed on In the Weeds, coming up this week from Greenflower, he said it was pure censorship. That's exactly how he viewed the fact he had 250,000 subscribers to his channel on YouTube, and they pulled it with no warning. Now, I it's like, and you heard even Nick Kovacevic from Kushko talk about it's going to take a long time for the stigma to come down. So again, we're still out here fighting for legitimacy, fighting for acceptance. And even a group like us, that I am totally focused on my content to not promote the smoking or the partaking or the edibling or the tincturing or the any which way you want to stick it in your body. In fact, there's the suppositories available as well. Any which way you want to do it, okay? We're not going to show that, but we can talk about it. We can educate people about it. And by denying the access to the public, this is something I've been consistent about. Everything you hear in the public is about what's wrong. You can get dependent on it. It's the substance abuse community that's out there pushing out information about the dangers of drugs. And they continue to refer to cannabis as a drug. It is a plant. And it's a live plant as opposed to what we have here. I just want to say, okay? Now, you cannot smoke these, nor do we want you to. You can melt them with a lot of temperature because they're plastic. But the point is,
yes, they are.
The public deserves to know the truth after all these years of being lied to about this plant. Okay? And again, I take it personally. I definitely take it personally when I post something. You work 3.5, 4 hours on something, comes out okay, you put it up there. Then they say, no, you can't show it on our channel. So I don't know. I just thought I'd rant a little bit as we wait for Jared Mursky, if he's going to show up or not. We'll see.
He's going to show up.
He's going to show up because he's another FOD.
I wouldn't quite say FOD yet.
He's an FOC. He's a friend of Kurt's. Because Kurt and he hung out together at Cannex in Jamaica. Yep. And then that led to that little interview that you sent me, which I appreciate. Isn't it funny how Kurt Dalton isn't here, and yet we always feel his presence? Don't we always feel his presence?
Absolutely.
We're talking about the founder of Cannabis.net, Kurt Dalton. And again, David Rabinovitz is here with us, and we talk about the business of cannabis. So back to the interview that we did with Chris Walsh. Mm-hmm. You could tell in his answer that there are advocates on the national level in cannabis that do want it totally legalized. They want the Controlled Substances Act removed. They want it descheduled, and they want it, I'm guessing, everybody would like it to be available for sale in interstate commerce. It will be good for the economy when that happens, yes?
Yeah, it depends what side of the economy you're on. So if you happen to be growing, right? Let's say you've dropped $18 million to outfit a 30,000 square foot greenhouse.
I'm hoping it's a little bit bigger for $18 million.
Well, there's 30 to 50,000 square foot greenhouses a few towns away from where we're sitting that are in that price range.
Wow.
So think about that sort of capital investment to grow a plant indoors. And when it becomes federally legal, you'll be able to ship it over state lines. Right? We already went through that with hemp. States arguing, well, it's illegal, we're going to stop it, and the federal government coming down and say they can move that across the state. You may not allow it in your state, but it's allowed on the roadways to transport through.
You, Mr. David Rabinovitz, were right again.
That's not the issue.
Yes, it is. The issue is that he's with us. It's Jared Mursky, and he's going to join us here as soon as he says hello to us and we can hear him.
Can you hear me? Okay, let's get Jared in. We don't need to listen to me fill time.
He is talking. Hi, Jared. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. This is Jimmy Young and David Rabinovitz in studio, and we all have a mutual friend with Kurt Dalton from Cannabis.net. And
That's right.
Right? Okay. And you, sir, your reputation precedes you. In fact, I honestly think, were you at CanX last September?
Yes, I was.
I met you. I know I did. Now that I'm looking at you and talking to you, and I'm sure you remember meeting me. Anyway, I'm only kidding. Tell us a little bit about Wick and Mortar and how exactly you got yourself to be known as one of the greatest brand experts in the cannabis space.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I started Wick and Mortar in 2009, but really got into the cannabis industry in about 2006, 2007. In 2009, when I started the agency, I realized that there was an opportunity to fill a gap in what would become the cannabis industry, which it was really black market at the time. And at the time, I was visiting underground dispensaries, and it just really never felt like a legitimized industry. And so I felt like, what the hell, why not start an agency with a focus on cannabis? And my mission since day one has been to change the perception of cannabis on a global level, one brand at a time. And so I structured my agency to support an opportunity where I could help evolve the industry, destigmatize it, and because it's been demonized for so long. So I've been in the space for a very long time. You could call me an OG, if you will. I used to get paid in weed and cash, and you can't deposit weed in the bank, so you had to figure out something to do with it. So needless to say, the industry's come a long way, as have I, and as has just the overall community as a whole. So I'm very excited about that.
Appreciate that. And before you came on, we had talked to Chris Walsh, the CEO of MJ Biz, and we were talking about still fighting the stigma day in and day out. And I was railing a little bit about Facebook taking down one of our videos that was strictly a promotional video about our content, which is news, information, education, and science-based. When and how long will it take for acceptance? And it'll start perhaps with the decriminalization after this election, if it goes the right way, at least the way that I'd like it to go, since everybody knows I lean which way I lean. How long is it going to take to finally gain acceptance?
Well, if you're talking about being able to use social media platforms as a form of advertising through pay-per-click advertising, where you're actually paying to promote your posts, that's just not going to happen in the THC sector until a federal legalization occurs. And it's primarily because a lot of these larger social media platforms have advertisers that pay them a lot more money than cannabis brands do or could. And so they certainly don't want to lose those advertisers, because they don't want to be in a position where they're also endorsing the support of cannabis while it's not federally legal. But at a point that will start to shift. Mark Zuckerberg had mentioned, his acceptance of cannabis as it relates to the use of medicinal benefits. Yet he doesn't subscribe to the idea of allowing us to, pay to promote our products. It's unfortunate, but it'll happen one day. I can tell you this, though, we've been successful at helping CBD brands, advertise and, push, I guess you could say, posts, so to speak, featured posts and sponsored posts through the various different platforms. It's not easy. It's difficult, and there's very specific vernacular and language you can use, but it's possible.
One of the other things I rail about all the time is you don't hear public service announcements about the benefits or the stories about those who have said many, many times, cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life. You know the whole thing about Acreage Holdings and their 3 stories that they wanted to run on the Super Bowl, and I guess it was shown in the Virgin Islands, but it wasn't shown in the States. How challenging is it for the industry to educate the public if their hands are tied?
Well, I mean, it's difficult, but there are many forms. I think that the cannabis industry is a very large community of sponges. You know, there's a lot of people who really want to learn. And so I think that with companies out there like Leafly and Weed Maps and perhaps how nerdy you get, you know, you may want to get into, the data side. You know, there's certainly avenues and opportunities that you can leverage in an effort to obtain more education. I think that there's also Green Flower Media is a great resource as well. You know, there's a number of podcasts that you can listen to. I'm launching one myself called Rebranding Cannabis here in the next 2 weeks. Our video version is going to be distributed through Roku, Pluto, Amazon, Apple, and about 8 other networks you can access through your smart television. And then, of course, all the audio versions are going to be syndicated through your standard platforms. But the point is that there are so many avenues in which brands and companies alike can access as it relates to marketing opportunities, but they simply are not. And it's not that they're not familiar with the idea of doing a podcast. It's just some people don't have that creative click where it's like, oh, how can I translate that into my business, right? And so for me, I was like, I know all of these celebrities, athletes, and artists. Why am I not leveraging those relationships to help support them and to help create more credibility for the brands we build and the company that I'm developing, right? So, you know, we interviewed Sean Kemp, and now we may be bringing him on as a client. And, you know, so it just goes to show you that there are ways to monetize these, you know, marketing tactics without measuring the success based on how many views you have, given the fact that there's so many other factors to consider as it relates to generating revenue.
Especially now when you have so many different outlets, and you mentioned quite a few of them, and the advent of smart TVs and how you can get so much content. One of the things we talk about when we talk to prospective, I call them supporters, it is how you can control your message now as a business with a product or a service through social media. And I'm hoping and guessing that that is exactly kind of the same kind of thing that you preach when you talk to clients, that you're your own network now. You're your own brand. Control your message. Yes?
I don't know if he realizes he's talking to him.
But
you're talking to me or are you talking to him?
No. So I'm looking, he's got you on this monitor. Oh. Okay? And so I was faking everybody out, but someone who's as savvy as you picked up on that. Yeah, I knew I was talking. This is what happened. We're a bootstrap company here, okay? Come on, man. It's the magic of TV. Now you get the question. Go ahead.
Well, now you got to ask it again because I was waiting for him to answer it.
Well, okay, here's my answer.
Answer your question.
Jared, could you help me out with that one?
Yeah, so the question was, how important is it to control your message when you are a brand in the cannabis industry, and now that you have access to all the different social media outlets, okay? And you're already doing it.
Okay, so it's a matter of, first you have to look at building the foundation that supports the ability to be consistent as a brand. Okay. What happens, and I hate to say this because, I have friends and family that have, bipolar disorder, but I use this term wholeheartedly. There's too many bipolar brands in the cannabis industry. They don't have any level of consistency as it relates to how they communicate to their consumers or the businesses they do business with. It's all over the map. And, brands alike often, seen in the space, throughout the country, they try to be one brand to rule them all, right? And so you have to remember that being niche is very important. So when you understand those factors first and foremost, it gives you the ability to create a foundation for a brand that has the substance to really support the lowering that customer acquisition cost, simply because it's easier to market something that is niche focused versus something that is made for everyone under the sun, right? And so you have to be clever like that. And you also have to remember that, again, in order to ensure that you're able to measure the success of a brand across all of these platforms, you have to be able to A and B test different scenarios, but you have to make sure that the brand and message is consistent. You only want one personality. Otherwise, again, you just may not be or feel as credible to a consumer. Consumers want something that they can rely on and trust. And so, a brand is the promise that you make to your customer. And so it's not the logo, it's not the name, although those are very important messaging tools, right? We have to remember that the customer journey and the experience they have as it relates to your brand is really all that matters.
Absolutely. And you made a great point about how we have evolved from broadcasting, where we are actually had 3 networks and we're reaching the broad masses. And now we've got niche casting, and niche casting picks the exact consumer that you're looking for. Then you go after them, you control your message, and you get that. I love the idea of the consistency of the message as well. So important, and it is something that we kind of embrace here as well. What you doing
and
there?
then there's also Social Club TV, where you can now advertise directly through, as a cannabis brand, you can advertise directly into their platform. And we have our documentary up there right now, and that's being syndicated to a bunch of networks.
And you said it was Social Club TV.
Yep.
What's
So
the
if
name
you
of
go
the
to the
documentary?
Social Club TV, or thesocialclub.tv, you can check them out. They're owned by a company called Ronin Content, which was founded by Josh Otten. Great guy. I'm actually an advisor of the company, which is why I love sharing them.
Can I ask you a question? You know Josh Otten. I know, I've heard of him. I've actually looked him up, not talked to him, but I think I've reached out. Does he have roots in New England at all? Because there used to be a guy named Les Otten that owned a lot of the ski areas in northern Maine and New England. Any idea?
No, I don't know.
Okay. I just love playing those games, because I'm the old guy. Hey, there we go. Now, see, this would be taken down on Facebook. David, take a look at what he's doing. He's not paying attention. What brand? What do you?
I am paying attention.
What strain do you got there? Go ahead, Jared. Talk
Facebook.
To me.
Facebook. It's only CBD.
This is at the point where he pulls out the bong.
Yeah.
Is the point where he's decided he likes talking to you. We went through that yesterday.
Oh, really?
Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I also smoke weed every day, so.
There you go. And why not take advantage of that? Can you share the strain, or do you want to kind of wink and tell me it's CBD?
No, I don't care. I've got a few different,
nice.
A little strain medley in here.
A potpourri.
It's all the friends that come over. It's all the friends that come over to the office. So like, hey Jared, take a couple nugs. I'm like, all right, throw them in this jar.
There you go.
So you never know. It's kind of a mystery jar, which is what I love about it.
Gotcha. It's a grab bag. A potpourri, literally and figuratively. There he goes. He's got something else he wants to do. I like this. Is this your crib, as it were?
That's
my living quarters.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Right. I don't know where my other bag of weed is, but it's around here somewhere.
God, don't you hate when that happens?
But it's Blue Dream, and it's delicious. I also had the opportunity of trying this.
That's a Snoop Dogg wine?
It's Snoop Dogg on the 19 Crimes bottle.
Okay.
If you ever seen the augmented reality that they do on the 19 Crimes labels, but it's pretty impressive. You should check it out.
Did he refer to himself as an OG? He's not the OG, right?
Well, look how old he is.
I'm I'm the first person in the world to start a cannabis-focused branding and marketing firm.
Hey, have any of your clients won any awards for your work?
Yeah, multiple times.
Tell us about that.
Well, Narvona, one of the brands we developed out of Michigan, we won an award with the Global Packaging Awards. We won Best New Luxury Brand, and we were competing against, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Unilever, P&G. So some pretty small companies,
Forbes covered that, right?
Yep, Forbes covered that. And it's, I guess, was such an impressive project that the Global Packaging Awards, decided to use a lot of that design work and the photography that we did for the advertisements of their promotion of this year's awards. So pretty exciting.
There you go. Well, Jared Mursky, I appreciate you making the time to carve it out of your Friday afternoon and join us. Your reputation precedes you. You do great work. I look forward to that podcast. We'll be able to see it on all OTT channels, it sounds like.
Yep.
And what's the name of it?
Rebranding Cannabis.
Rebranding Cannabis. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is...
So our first episode's going to be, I'll give you a little teaser. Our first episode's going to be Ricky Williams.
I know who Ricky Williams. I was a sportscaster for years, so I totally know Ricky Williams.
What's our next episode, Derek? Then we got Dan Harrer as our second.
Yeah.
These have already been filmed. We've just done like 18 episodes. So what was our third one? And then Chauncey Leopardi, who's AKA Squints from Sandlot.
Okay.
You remember
Know
Sandlot?
any of these, David? I bet Isabel.
Sandlot, the movie, right?
Yeah.
Thank
Do you remember the little guy with the glasses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kid.
You're talking
That's
about
you.
a movie that we should remember.
I do remember.
I'm the little guy with the
it's a
glasses.
cult
I'd love to
classic.
be little.
I do remember that.
50 pounds and I'll be little.
I do remember that. All right. Hey,
So-
Jared. Good.
Yeah,
Wait,
One last thing.
one last thing.
Jared, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to talk to you about what your services are because they need a great branding guy, how do they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, very active on there. You can find me on Instagram, also very active on there. It's just at jared.mursky. Check out my YouTube channel, both mine and Wick and Mortar's. It's just my name, so pretty easy to find. And then if you really want to get in touch with us as it relates to the work we do from an agency perspective versus me independently, you can visit our website, www.wickandmortar.com.
Great.
Yes,
And I
sir.
believe we have that up on the screen.
We do have.
Excellent.
We used the right lower third graphic and we spelled everything right, which was the best part. Jared.
Wherever that lower third graphic is, it's
There
over
you go.
here.
He'll punch it up. Wait, I'm going to look at you. And I really appreciate the fact that you spent some time with us, Jared. Okay?
You bet.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Good job. David, he was terrific. And of course, I do remember meeting him down at CanX and a brilliant guy. It's obvious.
Right.
And now doing, the social. I like the fact that he's got himself a podcast and he's putting it out there. And we're about 6 months behind him.
Yeah, we got a great group of guests today.
Yeah, we have had a great group of guests, but we're not done. We're not done. Hey, there's more. Yes, indeed. In fact, he mentioned Green Flower, right? You heard him say it.
I heard him say that.
The CEO and founder is Max Simon. And sure enough, I interviewed Max Simon last week. We're airing it right after the Monday version of Cannabis Chat. That'll be coming up on Monday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. On our, we don't have as many distribution channels as he has yet, but we're going to get there. And this is a little clip with me hanging out with Max Simon, and check it out. And we'll be back after this clip, I promise. And there's a phrase I use a lot that is adapt and improvise. How important is that when you're building a business?
I mean, I always tell people pretty upfront that this cannabis business, this is actually my sixth business. And this has been the hardest business I've ever done by a huge margin, by a factor of 100. And I think that's important because as much passion and excitement there's a lot of obstacles and challenges and roadblocks in this industry that are very difficult. And for us, we have zigzagged and adjusted and pivoted and, changed courses way more times than I would have liked. but it's partially because the industry is changing so fast. And when we, for example, when we had originally started, we didn't have plans to be a B2B training company. It wasn't part of our vision or infrastructure. But the industry started growing so fast. The need for trained, educated, credible workforce became stronger and stronger. And there was a bigger and bigger opportunity expanding day by day. And so we moved into that space to take advantage of something that we thought we could do really well, and it's been great. And I could say that with higher education, and I could say that with the certificates, and there's all these areas. And so it's great. It's a great challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. But I think in cannabis, if you're not adaptable and flexible and open-minded and curious, you're just not going to make it in this space, because everything keeps changing and evolving so fast, and you have to be willing to adapt with it.
There you go. Hey, look at that. And that's Max Simon from Green Flower. He's got an online education platform that when I first got my medical card in 2013 here in Massachusetts, I must have spent 40 hours total, maybe 60, on Green Flower watching those videos, because he brought in experts from the medical community, and they were highly produced videos. They were easy to watch, and I probably learned more through the Green Flower platform than in any patient advocate that I ran into, for sure, until 2018, when, of course, I met the Rev Clinics group, and they've been, my go-to.
Great people.
My go-to group ever since.
Great people.
So we're not done. And in fact, we've got two guests coming up in the next half hour. They'll actually hopefully be joining us very soon. In fact, I think one of them may already be with us. They're both with us. Great. So it is Chris Day is going to be with us. Chris Day. And also, this is also a first, David. It's going to be our first international guest. He's from Peru.
Yes.
And his company is Can Farm, and that's Andres. And we have both Chris and Andres with us. Hi, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hey, how about that? The magic of Zoom television. Nice to see you both. And,
Likewise.
Let's start with Chris, and then Chris, if you'd like to set up Andres, I think that'll be cool because the two of you know each other. Tell me a little bit about your latest project, Project Evolve, and what are some of your goals with that?
Well, yeah, we started Project Evolve sort of in a beta stage back in March. And we do a couple of different things. We position the company itself as a marketing think tank. And then we also help the events industry. But what's relevant today is a project that we launched called the Global Cannabis Network Collective, which is really focused on international markets around the world, working with companies like Can Farm, which Andreas is the CEO of, in Peru, to help sort of accelerate knowledge share and optimize deal flow between multinational cannabis operators to help grow a sustainable, ethical, and robust international cannabis marketplace. So we're excited about it because it's a member-based model. And when members join and come in, they commit to helping each other to grow their businesses. And we've got an advisory board that is representative of every continent in the world that has a legal cannabis market in it. So it's been a great ride since the early part of the year in pulling these together. And Andreas was one of our initial early beta stage members. And we've been able to sort of work together in building some new content platforms and opportunities. We were together yesterday, actually, on our first Global Cannabis Network Collective meetup. And we had CEOs from, I think it was 8 different countries across the platform, of early stage to very mature businesses, all talking about how we sort of, again, accelerate these various markets around the world. So it's exciting for me. I love working with the complexity of multinational markets and all the different nuance that happens both culturally and legally in all these different places. So it's fun to work with folks like that. And I'll let Andreas introduce his own company. He does it vastly better than I do. And hopefully he can plug a little bit of the value and the reasons behind why he's come along for that ride.
All right, Andreas, tell us about Can Farm from Peru.
Hi all. Thank you, Chris, for that kind introduction. Well, I mean, we're very excited to have participated from the very beginning on the initiative of the Global Collective Network, because we do believe from the very initial stages of the company, and this is a collective effort. I don't think that the cannabis industry would have even been born if it was not for different people from different companies putting efforts together to make this happen. And that's exactly the approach that we are taking. At this moment in Peru, we are already importing product and putting medicinal cannabis in access to the patients. And to do so, we have partnered with companies in Colombia, Uruguay, United States, and Canada. And we look for, I would say, a wider scope of collaboration, considering not only the commercial aspects, but obviously production aspects, as well as research, because we really take a lot of consideration, all the scientific background that we are putting behind our work.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. You know, it's funny, and Chris, I think you can relate to this for sure. You know, for years, the plant was a social mechanism, let's just say, bringing together different backgrounds. We'd meet around the corner. We'd, meet up at various events, and you'd pass around the cannabis, and everybody got along. It was a bonding thing, right? And now here you are, taking that to the global level, if you will, right? You're smiling because I got a feeling that's exactly what you were thinking when you did this, right?
Yeah, well, part of I've always, since I was small, I had the opportunity to travel a lot globally. And so I've always had this joy that comes from connecting people and cultures and ideas. And yeah, when you look at the landscape, I think, for those of us who reside in the United States, it's a nation that frequently forgets sometimes that there's a big wide world out there. Right. And so being able to pull all of these different people and all the different science and research being done in other parts of the world that frankly we can't do here because of the legal framework, and being able to really help further that education, I think is a great payoff and something that I've really enjoyed. I learn a ton when I travel, whether it's to Europe or South America, and I talk to the scientists and researchers in particular there about what they're learning, in terms of efficacy and cannabinoid research. And we did a whole session about a month and a half ago with some amazing scientists on the GCNC network platform, where we talked for about an hour and a half exclusively about product innovation. And what other markets are doing to really bring new uses for the plant to market. So I'm excited that when the US finally legalizes, we'll already know what's coming because we're out there building it.
We were talking about that earlier. Obviously, we're right in the middle of a historic election time here in the United States. And, one side of the fence has already said they would decriminalize if and when they got elected. And David Rabinovitz, who's my co-host here, brought in one of his attorneys, and he gave us a definition of decriminalization versus legalization.
It's not enough, right?
See, there you go.
Not enough.
See, tell me why you don't think it's enough, Chris.
Well, I mean, decriminalization is a step. It's nice that we've decided that finally we shouldn't put people in jail. I think we've all figured that out. But if you're going to have a legally structured business infrastructure, you have to deschedule it and you have to change 280E. If you change 280E, then you have a business that can function in a rational way and benefit from the same sort of tax implications that every other business has. And of course, you have to deschedule it because that's the only way that you can acknowledge the research that has already proven there is benefit to this plant, right? So, I've never been one that says, hey, cannabis is the end all be all to solution to everything. But if we are truly a free country and we believe in empowering people to make their own decisions, then they should have the choice to be able to use cannabis medicinally or recreationally. So decriminalization is a political way for people to sort of skirt the real issue. And hopefully some of our legislature folks will, grow a set.
Sure. So, Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, decriminalization won't allow marijuana to be easily transported across state lines.
Oh, it does nothing for that.
Right. But when it becomes legal, how does that impact some of your international clients with respect to the U.S. market?
I'd love to hear Andreas's perspective to this as well, but my perspective is that for those who have an interest in the U.S. market, obviously it opens up a huge marketplace of, well over 300 million potential customers over time, legal adults that can do that. And that's, currently would be the largest single market in the world. So everybody would like that, I think. And then for a lot of them, frankly, it wouldn't affect them at all because they're operating in other places, right? I have a client that has a cultivation facility for medicinal cannabis in Australia. They sell in Australia. They have expanded into the UK, have product on the shelves there, have gone into Germany because they've got all the licenses and certifications. And frankly, I mean, if the US opened, maybe it would be appealing, but they've also got their hands full in other markets. So there's certainly lots going on in other parts of the world. We are getting further and further behind. So
you're connecting not just people to the U.S., you're connecting people internationally to other countries.
Right.
Yeah, actually, most of our work is connecting people to other countries because we're interested in expanding the global marketplace. And if the U.S. doesn't want to play, then we will do it elsewhere.
And I think, sorry to interrupt, I think that's exactly the one of the main missing opportunities here is international collaboration. Obviously, the market is and it opens up. But I have, for experience, right now, companies in the US that are limited in the ways that we can cooperate. And we are cooperating with other countries. So I think that there's a lot of US-based companies that are missing on that opportunity.
So if I remember correctly, New Zealand actually votes this weekend on legalization. Or am I right? I mean, Chris, I read that in news.
I think that's correct. I haven't actually checked into New Zealand in the last couple of weeks. I did have a conversation with someone about a month and a half ago about New Zealand and some of the propaganda issues that were going on there around the legalization debate in New Zealand. So I cannot tell you for sure that the election is right now. It is happening soon.
It's this weekend. I swear to you, as a news guy, I reported on it, so I'm comfortable with it. Okay?
I trust you.
Thank you. And it's 49% to 49%, with 1% undecided right now, so they don't know which way it's going to go. The gentleman here in studio, I've been trying to send him little notes, but he's going to remember this. He's going to remember this story. About 2 years ago, he sent me an article about how he believes that cannabis ultimately will be traded as a future on the commodities market.
Yes.
Now you remember, don't you?
Well, no, I believe that for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? I believe that Well, I'll let you continue.
I'm giving you props here. All right.
So you want me to take the prompt?
No, you can take the prompt. I want to say, how might that evolve, and when will that day come? And then they'll set a wholesale price, and that's how it's going to work.
Let's let Chris take that one.
Well, I think that, yes, at some point there will be cannabis will be traded as a commodity. I think that's true. I think you'll probably see some iteration of that in the not too distant future around hemp. But, it's still to be determined. I think so many people right now are focused on the process of cultivation. If we look at other industries, tomatoes, any kind of produce, right? There is ultimately this point where there is a brand for a type of tomato or a type of apple, just as you could say a strain of cannabis. And so it's likely that will take place. And then there will also continue to be sort of boutique and niche brands and strains that serve very specific purposes and are grown for very specific reasons and products. So I think ultimately, if we get past sort of the odd regulatory system that we've created, it's inevitable at some point.
Here's my view. I don't believe that the U.S. consumer is going to adopt marijuana and smoke it. I think the people who currently smoke will continue, but I think the big growth is going to be in drinks, edibles, and other infused products. And as soon as you want to put pot into an edible, a drink, or some other infused product like a patch, you have to deconstruct the plant. Once you deconstruct the plant into its component parts, now you've got a commodity. And it's going to look no different than corn syrup. It'll be, I need 30 gallons of oil. It has to have this chemical profile, these terpenes, this level of potency, and that's what I want to buy. I'm going to look at the lab label, and I don't care where it was grown. That's what I'm looking for, because I'm going to put it into my cookies, brownies, gummies, whatever it happens to be. Am I right or wrong?
I think there is I think your statement as far as it goes is accurate. I think it limits the true uses available for cannabis because in that discussion, you're primarily focused around consumables in different ways, right? But the pharmaceutical industry for it is huge. The various uses of other parts of the plant are enormous. So yeah, if you look at consumption trend data, that's already happening, right? The edibles are growing in popularity, and other ways of consuming other than flower are growing. That being said, flower is still holding strong. So
flower is, I think, 50% of the sales in Massachusetts.
Still about 50% of the sales.
Right.
Yeah. Andreas, in your country, what's the growth of THC infused cannabis, marijuana, versus hemp? And where are the two markets in Peru, hemp versus marijuana?
Well, at this moment, Peru is only a medical market for cannabis. But that doesn't mean that THC is ruled out of the scenario. On the contrary, I mean, our regulation is open for any formulation as long as it is backed by a doctor that prescribes it. So at this moment, just because it's a very recent market, it is basically what you have in the legal market is CBD products. But we expect that within the next 2 or 3 months, there will be formulations of different kind, not only THC and CBD, but other components of the plant. And it's going to be a very diverse market, still medical, I would say. I don't think that Peru is going to embrace easily any adult use. We have a lot of history on drugs and cartels to be able to move away from that. And this is my view. But I think that on the medical side, it's going to be growing rapidly on different type of formulations.
You know, in the United States, we've got a couple of federal agencies that are continuing to try to figure out what to do with the CBD market. let alone the marijuana market. And I'm talking about the FDA, the DEA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. No one wants to take responsibility in the United States for putting out these regulations. And I got to ask, in Peru, how's that work in Peru? Who's in charge of the whole growth?
Funny you say, Jimmy. I mean, honestly, it's exactly the same situation. The biggest burden is on the shoulders of the health department, which includes the FDA equivalent here. But we have security department, which is the DEA, and we have the agricultural department as the USDA. So three have a lot to say, but health department is the main regulator in the space. But again, it's difficult, it's new, they don't know exactly what to do, so it moves slowly. And but I mean, so far it's been moving, I think, in the right direction. Not the right speed, but the right direction at least.
Hey, Chris, that's kind of how we feel here about the decriminalization movement, even though I know it's not far enough for you.
No, well, and it's not far enough for an industry that employs hundreds of thousands of people. I have, every presidential election, I find it interesting where, certain candidates will defend like the fossil fuels industries, right? And that's fine, but taking coal as an industry that constantly comes up every 4 years as an example of people's jobs that we need to defend, regardless of how you feel about that industry one way or the other. There was a study that came out about a year ago comparing the size of the employment, and cannabis nationally at that time already employed 10 times the number of people. And how many federal whether it's congressmen, senators, or the president of the United States do you see saying, hey, we need to defend hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs that drive a high growth industry that continues to be a high growth industry in spite of all the barriers, right?
Right.
We give all of this help and support to these other industries which have found it very difficult to innovate, and throw tremendous amounts of resources that direction while we limit the ability for people to do legitimate research with a product that has proven benefits medicinally, and certainly I think recreational is a choice people should also have. So, but what Andreas was talking about going on in Peru, you see that around the world, right? The medicinal market really is the direction things are going throughout Europe, for the most part, throughout South America, Australia, even Southern Africa now has a growing nascent industry. So this is going to happen. It's just at what point do we have the political will in the US? And in the meantime, we work diligently other places to make sure that the world is ready.
There you go. So here's a question, crystal ball, if you will. In the next 10 years, and David's a numbers guy, he's already analyzed the adult use sales market in Massachusetts for the past year over year on this show. Which of the various commodities inside the cannabis plant, hemp, medical marijuana, or recreational marijuana, which one has the biggest upside? David answers first.
I know. I'm gonna let him go so I can see whether I'm right. If he says what I'm thinking,
I think I know.
My hand goes up.
Okay.
If he doesn't, I'm gonna very quietly fade.
What do you guys think?
You want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated question.
That's what I do. It's a talk show.
Yeah. I mean, clearly industrial hemp has enormous uses.
Bingo.
So that has great potential, and it's not fighting the same level of propaganda. So since we're looking at a 10-year time horizon, that's big. Medicinal cannabis also, if you look at the progress, as Andreas said, although it's slow, it is moving throughout Europe, throughout South America. North America is coming along. I think medicinal cannabis also, and all the uses that come from the plant with the different cannabinoids has great potential, but I don't think it would be safe to project that at this point. There's too many unknowns. And recreational is going to be a case-by-case decision by each country. So that will limit. But Andreas?
Mentioned, Chris, but I mean, I think there's a slight difference, which is, I mean, obviously hemp, I didn't just say hemp, not only industrial, I mean, hemp as a general has a lot more possibility to penetrate in different verticals, in different industries. So the penetration that it can have to the economy is wide, is very much larger than what you have with medical. Now, we are a medical-oriented company, and we believe a lot on the impact that we create through health. But I mean, although we believe in that high level of impact, we have to realize that you're going to probably touch much more people on the global scale on a hemp industry, diversified industry, than through a medical cannabis industry. So I will put, yes, I would put hemp as number one. And the same as you say, I think recreational is a game that's case by case. So I will bet on medical on the second.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with them both on the hemp.
Yeah.
We're going to put hemp into concrete to have hempcrete.
Yep.
And when you put hemp into concrete without rebar, rebar rusts, right? That's why we have so many infrastructure problems across the United States. You can take hemp and make clothing.
Right.
If you would like a hemp T-shirt, Masscan sells hemp T-shirts with the Masscan logo on them. And you can use hemp to make auto parts. So
there you go. It's got so many different uses and everything. And yeah, it can still be fun in a cookie.
Yeah. You know, one thing about the uses that I think is interesting also, I was sitting on the sustainability conference a couple of weeks ago that was focused on all these different usages around the plants and hemp. And we were talking about sort of the choice that was made and how we have built our economies, right? Around renewable resources or not. And the fact that in a lot of ways we made the wrong choice. And now we're starting to move in the other direction back to a more sustainable approach to the way we live on the planet. And I think cannabis is because in many ways it's a very, very old industry, but in its current form, very nascent. You know, there's a great opportunity for it to be truly the first truly sustainable and impact-centric industry built from the ground up. And that is something that I personally take great pleasure in helping to highlight that. And I know, Andreas's company is built around that idea in a lot of ways, and many, many others in the industry are. And that's something that's often lost in the debate around legalization in the States, because we're so infatuated with what happens when somebody consumes THC as opposed to the bigger picture. So it's worth pointing that out as a future benefit.
There you go. Hey, Christe, how do people find out about Project Evolve?
Well, our web address is alwaysdriveinnovation.com. And if you put /cannabis on it, you can hear and see all about the Global Cannabis Network Collective. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, and Twitter is @CDayOnTheEdge.
And Andreas, did you like the photo I sent you?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Pelé is a huge, iconic figure area.
I'm a soccer nut ever since I was 7 years old, and I'm much older now. And in '94, during the World Cup in the U.S., I had a media credential. So not only did I get to interview Pelé, but also the Argentine national team practiced at Babson College, which is the town right over, actually in the same town that this studio is in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And I got to interview Diego Maradona, Fernando Redondo, and Gabriel Batistuta. And I'll tell you, I did not understand a word of Portuguese. So I had to recruit somebody to tell me who's going to be the voice of Maradona. And I made this guy's day, needless to say. So I love the game. I love all South American people, and I include you in that. Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on Friday's Cannabis Chat. You're welcome here any old time. And appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You bet.
Bye.
Take care.
You guys have a great weekend. Bye.
There you go. Thank you. You too. So, David, we got through another week here, and I got to tell you, it flies when you do good content. So and you get a big star today because you did a great job of putting together a great show. So thank you.
The quieter I am, the better I know the show is.
That's right. Well, you know what? Quiet is something I'm still mastering. Let's just say, okay? So again, I want to thank everybody who works on this show: Dan French and Isabel Turner, Karen Sullivan, Sarah Galt, and also our web guy, Jacob Spielberg, as well. Remember, coming up next is the this week's edition of Weed Talk News. Kurt Dalton is on assignment, as we say, and we sub in the main man himself, Rye Russell from Weed Buds Radio. That's coming up right after this show. A reminder again, keep it in focus here, people. It's a whole new world of weed. Let's all use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week on Cannabis Chat on Pro Cannabis Media.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Weed Talk News. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis News. Kurt Dalton is on another assignment tonight, so we go to the bullpen and bring in the main man himself, Rye Russell. Hey, Rye.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I know I'm no Kurt Dalton, but hopefully I can live up to your esteemed audience's expectations.
You absolutely will, Rye. And we're going to start this week in your state of Maine. It's just coming off its first week of weed sales in vacation land. So what are the big sales results in week one, Rye?
We are off to an incredible start. Opening day was a huge success here in vacation land, with 6 stores generating almost $100,000 in total sales and over $9,000 in sales tax generated for the state. So we'll wait for the official report for the first closing week.
It's so amazing, isn't it? You read about Colorado and Illinois setting all these monthly records of millions and millions. Massachusetts does at least 1 million a day now. And the state of Maine took them 4 years to get to that starting line. But hey, at least it's going in the right direction now, right?
It's about time. We are ready for it. And this is just the beginning.
And I got to ask you, how has the media coverage been? I checked a story from my old station, WGME TV 13 up there, and it seemed a little balanced, although they used that M word an awful lot.
Well, it is fairly balanced up here. However, I think that there's still a lot of ambiguity felt by the players in the market. And so I think there's still a lot of uncertainty of what the regulations are, how is enforcement going to be handled. But like all emerging markets, we're going to see some early adjustments and a very successful launch.
Well, our next story is also about another New England state, Vermont, and they passed legalization last week, and some predictions now are being released about that market. But first, let's go to New York with Deborah Borchart's Green Market Report. Deb?
Thanks, guys. Well, we are just beginning to get into the earnings season. Markets were closed on Monday, so it was a shortened trading week. This week, AFRIA reported its first quarter revenue of $69.6 million for fiscal year 2021. This is a 23% increase over the prior quarter and their 6th consecutive quarter of growth. They did report net losses of $5.1 million for that quarter. Harborside released preliminary third quarter 2020 results. The company said they expect revenue to come in at $18.5 million. Keep in mind, in June, their revenue was $15 million, so things are going in the right direction for Harborside. You should be aware that their ticker symbol has been changed. It went from HSDEF to HBORF. And the Valens Company reported third quarter financial results for the period ending in August. The company said net revenue was $18.1 million. That is a 10% increase from their third quarter in 2019 of $16.5 million. They also had a net loss of $3 million. And that's it for this week. I'm Deborah Borchardt with the Green Market Report. For Weed Talk News.
Since Deborah was reporting on the earnings of many of the biggest cannabis companies, the public ones, you have to wonder who's going to jump into the Vermont market as it opens up. Now, Vicente Cederberg's Andrew Livingston put out projections that the market in Vermont could reach $250 million, but it might be 2025 or 2026 before that happens, right? Vermont only has a population of 600,000, but they call themselves the Green Mountain State for a reason, right? Ooh.
Absolutely. As far as licensing is concerned, I see a lot of the same challenges that we've faced and are facing here in Maine. That being said, Vermont is a beautiful state known for its tourism, with estimates of 13.5 million or more visitors every year. So even with the pandemic, people are looking for remote places, and often they're looking to reconnect with nature and unplug from the digital world. So some reports, I'm reading one report right now, Jimmy, that says we shouldn't be surprised if Vermont can quickly rise to 800 million, maybe even $1 billion market.
Wow, that's huge. And a state that only has 600,000 people in Maine, you just told me has 1.5 million now. So what are the projections for the whole market in Maine going to be?
Well, I think what we're finding, the medical market made a huge leap and major advancements last year. And I think with the addition of the rec market, I think it's going to quickly become Maine's top grossing export.
Wow, that's going to be interesting to watch as most of New England now. And how would you like to be in New Hampshire? They're now surrounded by 3 legal states. Seems to me that governor might want to get a little revenue going in the right direction, but New Hampshire is a strange one of the New England states. No disrespect to some friends up there. Right?
The Granite State.
Are you afraid that New Hampshire might invade Maine someday or what?
No, I don't think so. The Granite State is a beautiful place to visit, but I like being up here in the Great White North.
There you go. All right, there are now 4 other states in the U.S. who will be voting on legalizing the adult use of cannabis in a few weeks. That's Arizona, New Jersey, Montana, and South Dakota. Now, on the other side of the world is New Zealand. And sure enough, they'll be voting on legalization this weekend. And right now, it's a dead heat. Right, New Zealand trying to become the 26th country to decriminalize, if not legalize, our favorite plant.
Well, polling is a split, 49 to 49, leaving 1, maybe 2% undecided up for grabs. This is going to be a nail biter.
And I'm going to just ask, you've never visited New Zealand, have you?
I have not yet.
On the bucket list, as it is mine. All right. From the research world, this fact really has been known for quite a while. And make sure if you go in for surgery and you're going to get general anesthesia, please declare to your anesthesiologist that you enjoy cannabis. Why? Well, you might just wake up in surgery. A study at the University of Colorado Hospital among 118 patients who had surgery for a broken leg, that group that used cannabis needed much more anesthesia than those who did not partake. So, Rai, have you known anybody who has awakened during surgery?
Luckily, I personally do not. But I saw this article this morning, and I'm really glad we're talking about it, Jimmy, because this is truly one of those, there are those that know and those that do not know types of things. And you don't necessarily want to be one of those that did not know. So if you're going to surgery, this is information to please share with your doctors.
Absolutely, 100%. And they're not there, by the way, to arrest you or hassle you or judge you. They're really just there to, well, take care of your body in whatever way it needs to be taken care of. So put trust in your medical community. Now, let's go to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., for the D.C. Cannabis Report from Phil Adams from Vote Pro Podcast. Phil?
Vote Pro Podcast, here with the Weed Talk News D.C. Report. New Jersey Senator and one-time candidate for president Cory Booker raised the issue of racial disparities in marijuana enforcement during his questioning of Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett on Wednesday. While he didn't ask Barrett any specific questions on cannabis policy, Booker did point out the disparity, saying, quote, "There's no difference between blacks and whites for using drugs, but blacks are multiple times more likely to be arrested." The Senate Judiciary Committee will vote on the Barrett nomination on October 22nd. The Supreme Court this week declined to hear a case challenging the constitutionality of the DEA's Schedule I classification of cannabis. The suit was originally filed back in 2017 by a coalition of medical cannabis patients and activists. While fewer than 1% of petitions are granted a hearing by the High Court, the decision is nonetheless seen as a stinging defeat by legalization advocates. Representative Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, one of several members of Congress who signed an amicus brief in support of the lawsuit, vowed to continue the fight, however, saying, quote, "It's more important than ever that we pass the MORE Act." Washington, D.C. Councilman Robert Wright introduced a bill this week that would expand opportunities for people with felony convictions to participate in the medical marijuana market. In introducing the bill, Wright said, quote, "There is no reason why those who've paid their debt to society should be locked out of this industry any longer." The legislation would end a ban on participation by most so-called returning citizens and create programs to encourage cannabis entrepreneurship among the formerly incarcerated. That's the Weed Talk News DC report for this week. I'm Phil Adams from Vote Pro Podcast.
A new report released by the FBI shows once again how law enforcement officers target persons of color for weed possession. The Uniform Crime Report claims that there were 545,602 people in the U.S. who were arrested on cannabis offenses last year. Now, amazingly, that same study reported that the number was more than 495,871 who were arrested for violent crimes. Now, what's even more disheartening is that 92% of cannabis arrests were for possession. Rye, black people are 3.6 times more likely to be arrested than white people. Another reason why reform of the federal laws have to happen. Right?
This is just I do agree. This is just bonkers. The fact that we're still talking about it, these numbers speak for themselves. It doesn't matter what report you read. We need reform, and we need it within this next administration.
That's right. And a lot of the new laws that are coming out are expunging records. We know the job that the Last Prisoner Project and Steve D'Angelo have done. They're getting more and more people to get out of jail and get their records expunged. And that, I believe, is only the next green wave that will happen. But right now, let's go north of the border to Canada for Solomon Israel's Canadian Cannabis Report. Solomon?
I'm Solomon Israel from Marijuana Business Daily International, and this is the Weed Talk News Canadian Cannabis Report. Cannabis producer Aphria has reported growing recreational marijuana revenue for the quarter ended August 31st. The company's gross recreational revenue hit nearly 70 million Canadian dollars for the quarter, but that was offset by a decline in international revenue, and net revenue declined on a quarterly basis. Aurora Cannabis has sold off its stake in Australian medical marijuana company Can Group. The company told Marijuana Business Daily it still sees potential in Australia's medical marijuana market, but for now it's focusing on core markets in Canada, the United States, and more mature medical marijuana markets abroad. And the vast majority of leadership positions in Canada's regulated marijuana sector are held by white males. That's the conclusion of a new analysis from the University of Toronto's Centre on Drug Policy Evaluation, which included 700 executives and directors of Canadian marijuana firms. All told, 84% of those leaders were white and 86% were men. You can read those stories and more at mjbizdaily.com. I'm Solomon Israel from Marijuana Business Daily.
The MJ Biz Daily Factbook for 2020 is now available, and did you know that the median salary in the cannabis industry was $58,511 in 2018, while the median salary for U.S. workers as a whole was $52,000. That's according to Glassdoor data, just one of the many facts you'll find in the MJ Biz Daily Factbook. You can get yours online at mjbizdaily.com/factbook. A reminder that the CEO of MJ Biz Daily, Chris Walsh, will be joining David Rabinovitz and myself on the Friday edition of Cannabis Chat on the Green Rush program on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media, live at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And speaking of upcoming programs, our friends at Green Flower are hosting an online conversation that is hosted by Max Simon, their founder, and two people from Normal on Thursday, October 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. Jen Michelle Padini, their development director, and Keith Stropp, the founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, will join Max. Now, you can register on their website, green-flower.com. Max Simon is my guest on In the Weeds this week, and we release that show on Mondays on our PCM affiliates and social media outlets. Now, one final story to talk about this week, and yes, it's back to the great state of Maine for this one. I know Bangor, Maine is a little north of where you are, but there's a police officer on the force in Bangor who has quite a following on Facebook, and sure enough, he used that forum to enlighten Maine people about the new laws. Do you know about this guy, Lieutenant Tim Cotton?
Lieutenant Cotton is quite a local celebrity here. And the Bangor Police Department, believe it or not, they have been producing some of the greatest social media content of any police department in the nation. And it's terribly clever. It's super funny, and the public loves it. It's genuine, it's real. And what I found funny about this post was the disclaimers at the bottom of it. They recognize that you can sometimes in today's world get attacked from all angles. So there was a funny disclaimer, and we'll have to check it out, but it said that if you don't agree with the views or messages of that post, that it's okay because the writer doesn't want to do this job anyway. So they're hilarious.
Yeah, I totally do. And, you know, it's very interesting as we sit here and we laugh about this, and it got national attention. But it's this kind of a public service of information, an exchange of information, where he's legitimizing the fact that, hey, it's now legal now. It's okay if you get the munchies. It's okay if you partake. Just don't do it against the law, like don't smoke it in public, and make sure you use it responsibly, and don't drive. And those are the messages that the public needs to hear. We understand that. But a lot of times when these public service announcements that are being produced by, let's say, the Massachusetts Cannabis Commission, when they come out very patronizing and pretending that it's, oh, you know, it's still a dangerous drug. You have to be careful with it, and you do, but you don't have to be arrogant about it or patronizing about it. Just accept that it's here and teach people about the substance. Do you agree with that, Ryan?
I 100% agree. I don't think anybody in today's world needs a lecture. We're all just trying to exchange information peacefully so we can live our best lives.
Oh, I like that. Live your best life. That sounds like the Green Nurse Group. But anyway, that'll do it for this week's Weed Talk News. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. And
I'm Rye Russell.
And where are you from?
And I'm Rye Russell from Weed Buds Radio. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for sharing the love.
You bet, Rye. Thank you so much for filling in with Kurt. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Weed Talk Now, Weed Talk News, and In the Weeds are all available on most major podcast distributors like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and our friends at clnsmedia.com and our flagship, Cannabis.net. So subscribe, share, and like our videos on all the social media networks out there, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the WeedTube, and YouTube. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.